This is your first time to the channel, welcome. My name is Scott. I am a practicing physician assistant working in endocrinology. I'm also a type 1 diabetic. If you're interested in diabetes related news, tech talk, product reviews, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be coming out with new content all of the time. All right, so the Dexcom G7, it's almost here. It's been CE marked in Europe, almost ready for FDA approval here in the United States, and most of the details are out about the G7, but there's been some new details about the new redesigned app for the Dexcom G7. So prior to this point, the only glimpse we had of the Dexcom G7 app was a small video clip that Dexcom released, but today I'm going to bring you all of the details, all of the new information about the completely redesigned Dexcom G7 app, and there's a bunch that's new about this app. So let's break it down. Let's talk about the brand new, completely redesigned Dexcom G7 app. All right, so the first thing I want you to take a look at, let's look at the home screen. Let's look at where you're going to see day-to-day when you're opening your Dexcom G7 app. Now you'll notice this looks a little bit different than the G6. There's a lot of new buttons and options compared to the previous model, the G6. So first let's talk about the tabs at the bottom and what each individual one does. So you take a look at the bottom, you see we have glucose, history, connections, and profile tab. So the glucose tab is the screen you're seeing right now. It's the window the app will open up to every time you load the app. It's the one that you'll most likely interact with the most often. You can see it has some familiar features like the G6, but you can see it also has some new options. The first thing that you're going to notice is at the top you have the option to view your last 3, 6, 12 or 24 hours of glucose data. This was something you could do on the G6 app, but the only way you could access it was by putting your phone into landscape mode. So now this option is built into the home page. It's a nice addition. It just makes things a lot easier. The next thing that you're going to notice on the home screen is those 3 little dots up in the top corner there. This is what's called the More button, and it allows you to access the alert levels as well as letting you access a feature called Quiet Mode. And Quiet Mode is something new and pretty exciting. It's actually, with this feature, you have the option to automatically switch all alarms to vibrate or to even silence all alarms, including the urgent low for up to 6 hours. So you can access that pretty easily from those 3 little dots there. All right, so what else is new here? If you look up top, you'll see that little plus button in the top right corner. Now, this is called the shortcut button, and it's similar to the event settings you had in the G6 app. But it's a little bit easier to access now, and it adds a couple of options too. What it adds that wasn't on the G6 is the ability to log a current fingerstick blood glucose level, as well as the ability to do a calibration straight from this option. So the calibration feature existed in the G6, it just wasn't as easy to access like it is now. And the G6 didn't allow you to log a fingerstick glucose level at all, but the G7 now will allow you to do that in this new option. And so there's one other exciting feature that I wanted to go over on the home screen. So if you scroll down a bit on the main screen, boom, you can access all of your clarity data right from the main screen, all of your charts, your graphs. It's a really nice feature, and with the G6, to access this data, it was a complicated process. You had to either download the Clarity app or go to the Clarity website. You couldn't access it from the main Dexcom app, so this just makes it so much easier. It's literally just scrolling up, and all of your Clarity data is right beneath that glucose tab. So this is a really nice feature, probably one of my favorite new features on the G7 app. All right, so that's the main home screen, that's the glucose tab, but there's 3 other buttons on the bottom, so let's talk about those. Let's talk about the next one over, which is the history tab. The history tab is pretty straightforward. It's where you can view all of the events you put in the shortcut button we talked about earlier. So you can see a history of all your insulin doses you logged, your food intake, your blood glucose meter values, all the stuff we talked about before that you can log into here. This is just basically where you can access that data to take a look and see what's been put into the history. All right, next tab over, we have the connections tab. And you can see we have a few different features that are on this tab. First, you can access your sensor data to see how much time is left on your sensor. You can replace your sensor, get your pairing code, and you can see this doesn't necessarily add anything new from the G6. It's just a lot more polished and easier to read the info than what we saw in the G6 app. Overall, this app is honestly just a lot prettier and more user-friendly from what I found. A lot of the features, even if they're not new, they're just easier to access and just look a lot more user-friendly in my opinion. And then some other options from this tab, you can also invite followers from the connections tab to share your glucose readings with. This is also where you would go to export and allow data sharing for health apps like Apple Health. So that's the connections tab, and then we have one other tab to talk about, and that's your profile tab. This is where you're going to access all of your settings, your alerts, customize your target range, phone settings, switching into quiet mode, contacting support. This is all going to be done through your profile tab, so a lot of different things that you can do from this last tab. It has a lot of familiar settings that we saw in the G6, but it's got a lot new about it too, a lot of customization which is really important. And just to highlight some of the really exciting features that I saw in here, I'm not going to go over everything, but I'll talk about some of the newer things that I saw in this profile tab. So first, as we discussed before, we have the ability to silence all alarms. This is a feature you can access in the profile tab. Of course, you can access this from the More button as well. So this is another feature you can access here, the Silence All feature, the Vibrate All feature. You have a bunch of new customization options in the system alerts, as we can see here. A bunch of different things that you can customize here. And you even have an option, which is new with the G7. You did not have this option with the G6, to delay your first high glucose alert if you know you're going to be running higher. So maybe you had some cake, you forgot to give insulin until after you ate it, and you know you're going to wind up running high in the next 20 minutes and you just don't care to hear about it. You know the high's coming and you don't want to hear that first alert. So you can actually delay the high glucose alert and skip the first one entirely. So you didn't have this option in the G6, and this is pretty nice. If you know for some reason you're going to be running high in the next half hour to an hour and you just don't want to hear that alarm, you can go ahead and delay that first alert. So this is another new feature you can access in the profile tab in the G7 that wasn't present in the G6. They also mentioned that there's going to be some new alert sounds to choose from in the profile tab. So I wasn't able to actually hear any of these new sounds, but they say there is some new ones, which is another nice feature as well. So you have some more options to choose from for your alerts, for your highs and your lows and things like that. So the profile tab, lots new about it, a lot of customization. Again, I couldn't go over everything because there's just so much, but you can customize almost all of your alarms, your settings, your times, your profiles, everything can be customized in this profile tab. So there's a lot of great new options with this. So one last thing that I wanted to mention, not really an app update for the G7, but something new about the G7 in general. And I found out that with the G7, all of the sensors are automatically going to come with the Overpatch included. Now, if you use the G6, you know that you had to actually contact the company, you had to order the Overpatches. They didn't come with the G6s automatically. You had to go through a process to actually get those. But if we take a look here, you can see that the G7 included in every sensor box, you're going to have an Overpatch automatically included. So it's going to come with every single new sensor that you get. And we can take a look and see what the Overpatch looks like here. So that's another nice touch with the G7 that I found out when I was doing a little bit of research for the app, that this is going to come with all of the sensors. So it's a nice thing that the G7 added in addition to all the other things we went over. So that is the G7 app in a nutshell. All of the new features that are coming out with the new G7. I am super excited. I can't wait for this. And as soon as I get my hands on it, I'll definitely do a review video to go over it. If you want a full review of the G7, all of the features, not just for the app, but for the sensor as well and everything, I have a couple videos. I'll leave links to those below, comparing the G7 to the Freestyle Libre 3 and just comparing the G6 to the G7. I'll leave for those in the video notes, and go ahead and check those out if you're interested. And thank you so much for watching the video.